Hello everyone, back tuning into our Sunday Roundup. So we're going to see how much we can cram into 20 minutes today at GWV. We're going to have a look at the stratosphere. We'll have a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations. We've got news about La Nina, and we'll have a look at sea surface temperatometers as well, and the weather for next week to 10 days, and the GWV's solar tracker. So plenty to be cramming in today at GWV with our Sunday Roundup. Before we get on with all of that, just say about the ads. There's links articles on all the pages. Have a browse widget to click through links. It's going to be helping us to pay for our website, and thanks so much for doing that. Thought we'd just start off with this, which is our reanalysis that we did for the winter of 2016-2017. This is our analogue that we was working with when we issued our GWV's winter 2016-2017 forecast. So we look back at past years that show similar tendencies to this year when it was building up towards the winter. And this was the analogue when we put all those years together that we came out with for how things might pan out in terms of the 500 millibar heights during this winter. And the idea was that we'd have a ridge out to the northwest of the country and a trough down to the south and the east, going through central parts of Europe, which will produce more of an easterly, northeasterly flow. So the GWV's winter forecast actually for slightly, not impressively, but a slightly colder than average winter. I want to show you January's 500 millibar high knowledge. This is January 2017, and it's not a million miles away from that analogue that we was working with when we issued the winter forecast, actually. So, a little bit different though. The trough is further south in towards the Mediterranean, southeastern parts of Europe, and the ridge is also further south as well. So instead of a ridge being centering towards Iceland and the south of Greenland, it's more towards Scotland, just to the north and west of Scotland, which means the easterly flow is further south. That's going down into southern Europe and the Mediterranean, into southeastern Europe as well. So certainly not a million miles away with the analogue for winter 2016-2017 in terms of January. Of course, we haven't got the full winter reanalysis yet because we're still in winter. We won't have that until we get past February. But certainly for January, the analogue looked pretty close, really, with just a few hundred miles difference. But it made a big difference to the fact that instead of being under easterly winds, those easterlies were further south in towards southern parts of Europe. But overall, I don't think the analogue is holding up too badly, actually, for this winter. But as I say, we'll have the full reanalysis for the winter when we get into the start of spring, into the early part of March. I want to just start off with that and show you that the analogues so far don't look like they're performing too badly. This is the GWV's solar tracker. So this is tracking daily sunspot numbers. Our good friend James Ackrill sent this through to me. He monitors this for GWV. So we can see that those sunspots are trending downwards again, although the trend lines are still upwards, because what happened is that back in January, second half of January anyway, we had quite a big spike in sunspot numbers. As I say, things are trending downwards again with those daily sunspot numbers. It actually went very quiet a few days ago in terms of sunspots, but not yet enough to start lowering the trend lines. The trend lines being the thick orange and thick green lines there. They still look like they're moving upwards, but we're still unravelling this spike that occurred back in the middle part and the latter part of January. But as I say, solar activity is trending downwards. We're moving towards solar minimum. We'll be arriving at solar minimum around 2019. And this, we look at this because when we have low sunspot numbers, we have quiet solar activity, it tends to coincide with an increased risk of northern blocking and colder winters, particularly for the Atlantic and Europe. It's there's less of a connection for North America and Asia, but for Europe and for the Atlantic, it does appear that when you get low sunspot numbers, it has an effect of weakening the jet stream, probably through solar particles, and and when you weaken the jet stream, you can start to embed in northern blocking, and northern blocking is the route to getting cold air out of the pole and down into mid-latitude. So essentially, weak sunspot activity is a signal. It's not a guarantee, but it is a bit of a signal for colder weather. Have a look at the stratosphere next. This is the temperature at 10 HPA over the North Pole. So we have the stratospheric warming that occurred at the end of, or at the start of February, end of January, start of February, just here. Now we're back towards average. We've seen quite a reduction in those temperatures at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over the North Pole. Of course, you can't sustain those warm temperatures in the stratosphere very long, so it always cools down quite quickly after a stratospheric warming. We still don't really know whether we actually had a sudden stratospheric warming, which is has a very strict definition. We just about reached that threshold and definition, but it was so close that it's possible that we didn't actually have a technical sun stratospheric warming, but it was a big warming that took place in the stratosphere over North Pole anyway. Whether this Scandinavian high and these easterly winds that we've had over the past few days is connected to that stratospheric warming, I'm not at all sure. We have had several goes through this winter anyway at getting high pressure in over Scandinavia, failed attempts. So it's one of those winters where high pressure has been a little bit drawn towards Scandinavia. So I don't think we can really definitively say that this stratospheric warming that occurred at the end of January and the start of February is associated with these easy winds. But it's possible that because of the stratospheric warming, although it didn't cause the Scandinavian high to develop, it's possible that it did weaken the jet stream enough, perhaps, to allow the easterly wind to actually get in, albeit it has been quite a feeble easterly so far, of course, and it's going to remain quite feeble because it's actually going to be warming up over the next few days. This is the temperature at 30 HPA, so this is a little bit lower down in the stratosphere, but still a long way up in the atmosphere, of course. Again, we had a big warming occurring at the start of February. But again, those temperatures at 30 HPA, a bit low down, has cooled down, actually a little bit cooler than average now. The grey line here is the average. Temperature average at 30 HPA at this time of year over North Pole. So we've got a little bit colder than average at 30 HPA. As I say, you can't sustain those warm temperatures for very long. So that's the reason that we've dropped down quite quickly. We're still waiting to see whether we're going to get a tropospheric response from this stratospheric warming. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. If we do get it, I think it'll be more towards the end of February, possibly even into the early part of March. This is how the GFS model is forecasting temperatures to progress over the next couple of weeks at 10 HPA in the stratosphere. Starting today, we know the cold temperatures are back over top of the North Pole. So if we run through, we can see that we keep those cold temperatures going at 10 HPA, although another warming starts to get going there around Siberia, trying to infiltrate into the pole once again. But overall temperatures look like they're staying quite cold over the North Pole in terms of the stratospheric temperature for the next week or so. Into the extended part of the GFS run, and another big warming is taking place there on the 22nd of February. That looks like it could be another go anyway at a sudden stratospheric warming. Whether that one will reach the definition, I'm not sure, but certainly another big warming taking place anyway in the extended range of the GFS this morning. That looks like, again, it is going to give the polar vortex, most cold temperatures, 10 HPA, quite a pasting. So although it's fairly cold again now in terms of those stratospheric temperatures, it looks like we've got another warming on the way as we get through into the last week or so of February. The Arctic Oscillation is looking like this. So we're negative with the Arctic Oscillation at the moment. This is the observed and forecast chart. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. It isn't driving anything, but the black line tells us where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red lines where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. So since around the end of January, start of February, when that sudden stratospheric warming took place, the black line trended downwards. So it looks like we had an immediate response to go negative with the Arctic Oscillation. That might just be a coincidence, but very quickly from around the end of January, start of February, we've trended into negative territory with the Arctic Oscillation. This is where we are right now, very negative indeed, and it looks like it's going to stay there for a few more days, but then the Arctic Oscillation is trending back up again. So it looks like it's going to the second half of February, when you would probably expect that we begin to go negative from that stratospheric warming. Actually, it looks like the Arctic Oscillation is going positive. So all rather odd what's going on there. It looks like we had an immediate response with the stratospheric warming, send the Arctic Oscillation negative and get blocking and over the North Pole. And then when you would expect the stratospheric warming to start having an impact in the second half of February, looks like we're trending positive and losing the blocking signal. So quite what's happening there, I'm not sure. It's been a very odd winter all the way along. It looks like it's staying quite strange, to be honest. So anyway, second half of February, it looks like we're reducing the blocking signal over the pole and probably strengthening the westerlies. The North Atlantic Oscillation looking like this. Again, remember, this isn't driving anything, it's just telling you what the atmosphere is doing this time in the North Atlantic. Now, we haven't really had any negativity of the NAO whilst the Arctic Oscillation has gone negative. So we stayed positive with the NAO over the past few days since the beginning of February. It looks like we're more or less staying there. We are going to get a little bit of a reduction in the NAO back to neutral in the next day or so, but then picking up again into the second half of February. So putting the two together, putting the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation together, the signal, I think, for the second half of February, for a while anyway, is definitely strengthening the westerlies and drawing in milder weather, and that is what we've got coming up over the next week or so. Anyway, the temperatures will be lifting up, probably feeling quite spring-like actually down in the south. This is how the oceans are looking. If I want to just throw this in. So in terms of the ENSO region, we've still got these colder than average sea surface temperatures through the central part of the equatorial Pacific, but over in the east towards Peru, those temperatures are lifting up. Is that the beginnings of the re-emergence of El Nino? It might be. Some of the longer range model output is signaling the chance of El Nino coming back by the time you get through into summer. Very, very early days on that, however. If we do get El Nino back, I don't think it'll be a Super Nino. I don't think it'll be the kind of event we had a couple of years ago, 2015, 2016. Because it's turning colder in the northern Pacific. You see all of this blue up here, and particularly around here over towards Alaska and Canada and down towards North America as well. Typically a very cold place, of course, in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the northern Pacific. But over the past 2 or 3 years, it's been warm up there. But it's definitely cooled down a lot over the past few weeks and months. It's back to what you tend to get in that part of the northern Pacific. So the signature, I think, for the PDO is that it's trending colder, and that means El Nino will have more of a struggle this year compared to a couple of years ago when it really took off. So we might have an El Nino event again, starting in the summer and progressing through to next winter. But I would suspect, no guarantees, I would suspect it's unlikely to be a Super Nino with the northern Pacific looking as cold as that. We shall wait and see. And then after that, of course, next year, we might, if these cold temperature anomalies in the northern Pacific are sustained and maintained up here, we might start to think about a proper La Nina next year. Talking of La Nina, we have had officially a La Nina designated by NOAA in the United States. So we use these charts when we do our ENSO updates, and I've been telling you to look out for 5 blue numbers appearing in these boxes, and that's what we've got. So we have actually had probably the weakest La Nina ever recorded. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 blue numbers appear, so it just into the threshold of a La Nina, of a cold event. What you have to do to get a La Nina designated is go down to 0.5 degrees or lower in terms of the anomaly over 5 tri-monthly periods. So it's a very strict criteria to get these La Nina, and also same is true for El Nino events designated. As I say, it has turned out that we've had a La Nina event, but I suspect that is just about the weakest La Nina event ever recorded. There'll be much more about this when we do our ENSO update later on in the month. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next 2 weeks, and also got a lot of mild weather to come. We've got the red line here, which is the 30-year temperature average. We're still colder than average for today, but cold weather is hanging on, but the trend clearly now is on the up, and it looks like we're going to be going pretty mild, then staying mild really through into the second half of February, and even heading towards the end of the month, which is this period of the chart just here. It looks like a prolonged period of pretty mild weather. Although, by the time we get through towards the latter stages of February, we are getting some significantly colder GFS ensemble members appearing. They look like they're outliers at the moment. The trend line here, which is the white line here, that's staying very significantly milder than average. So a little bit of an early taste of spring probable, I think, later this week, going into the second half of February. In terms of precipitation, by the way, looks like we're staying pretty dry, really. Lots of dry weather to come. No sign of an extended wet period. It's been a very dry winter. Looks like that's continuing, just with milder temperatures. So this is how the GFS is looking for Thursday, bringing up this southwesterly wind. That looks mostly dry and mild. Could be some rain up across Scotland. In towards Friday and the weekend. This is Saturday. Again, the west southwesterlies through the country. Mostly dry, closest ridge down in the south. Probably a little bit on the wetter side up in the north. The main thing is the temperatures. They do look very mild. That's a long fetch southwesterly, so you could be dragging in the air from the Azores with that. And temperature's probably going to around 13 or 14 degrees. No real change into Monday 20th of February. High pressure still anchored there to the south of us, still dragging up this very mild flow from the central part of the Atlantic Ocean. We go to day 10, which is Wednesday 22nd of February. It looks like we're trying to set up a little bit of a northerly flow there, but I don't think it really comes to much. I mean, it doesn't. So it looks like it's mild really through towards the final week of February, once today's cold conditions are out of the way. ECMWF looks very similar. Again, these very mild west-southwesterly winds coming up across the country at the end of the week into the weekend of 18th, 19th of February, all looking mild or very mild, with the air coming in off the central part of the Atlantic Coast. Again, a lot of dry weather for the south, probably some rain up in the north. We go through to Monday 20th of February, still looking pretty mild. That high pressure down to the south. That's how we finish up on day 10. High pressure again is in across Spain and France. Low pressure up to the north, and yes, he has been dragged up from the Azores, so it still looks very mild. Probably wet for Scotland, mostly dry for England and Wales. Temperatures again could be up to 13 or 14 degrees Celsius. I think that will feel pretty spring-like in the strengthening sun. Just to finish off with the CFS V2 for the next month. So these are 500 height anomalies broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 12th through to the 18th of February, becoming week. Got high pressure up to the north and to the east of the country as well. That's allowing those milder winds to come up from the south. We go through to week 2, which is 19th, 25th of February. High pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. air's being dragged up from the southwest, so that looks mostly dry, very mild, probably taste of spring as well. Week 3, which is the 26th of February through to the 4th of March. Still lots of high pressure. It's more centred towards the east of us at this point, so that could be a little bit cooler now. We're probably losing that southwesterly flow. That's going more up towards there. We'll probably bring the air more from the southeast, so that could be bringing some frost back towards the end of February from off the continent. But it would, again, be mostly dry, very dry signal for the rest of February anyway. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 5th through to the 11th of March. Very significant change. Suddenly we get loads of high pressure appearing, above average heights, across Greenland, with troughs centred over the UK and going down into southwest Europe, which would, I think, be pulling in much, much colder air from the north and the northeast. So, although it looks like we're setting up quite a prolonged spell of pretty mild weather for the rest of February, it by no means guarantees and means that we're done with cold weather, and does look there like winter could well come back quite spectacularly as we go through into March. So we'll wait to see on that. It's a long way off. That's week 4, very long way away. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But it is very rare that you progress from sort of February and go through to summer, keeping it mild all the way through, and you don't have any cold snaps coming through the spring. So I suspect we probably will get more colder conditions through the course of March, maybe even April as well. We'll have to wait and see on that. Right, I hope you enjoyed today's roundup. Crammed a lot in to 20 minutes. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.